People who became homeless in their teens or 20s, what's the most shocking thing you realized about being homeless that we don't hear enough about? So, how easily hidden it can be. I'm pretty sure no one at work or school knew I was homeless. I slept in my car in the community college parking lot, took a shower in the locker room, went to class, ate my meals in the cafeteria, went to work, then came back to sleep in my car again. It took me months working minimum wage to afford the deposit onto an apartment. I didn't take out any loans for my first 2 years of school. I don't think people realize just how many other people are living in their cars, or shelters, or short-term housing, flying under the radar. They assume that all homeless people are dirty, mentally ill drug addicts. Those are only a tiny fraction of the unhoused community. Next story. Kicked out when I was 16. Homeless until I moved into a friend's caravan in his dad's backyard a year later. Then homeless again off and on until I started working on a farm in my early 20s and could afford rent. But the most shocking thing that people won't tell you, when you're homeless and young, you don't realize how bad it is until you look back on it. At the time, I just thought that's how life was. Next story. Nothing feels worse than being on someone's couch who doesn't want you there. However, you got nowhere else to go, so you just cry. I found that out being homeless as a teenager, and that part was the hardest. Feeling like I belonged nowhere and that simple luxuries had to be earned myself, not given. Also, sometimes the poorest people can help each other the most. Next story. The way people treat you like you're invisible. How many predators there are out there that you won't see until you're in a vulnerable spot. The amount of human suffering in the world. Being so cold when sleeping, your body wakes you up so you don't freeze to death. It's been years since then, and I don't know if I'll ever look at the world the same way again. All it takes is bad luck and a few bad decisions. Sometimes, not even that. Next story. If you behave, there is no help for you. My mom and I lost our home when I was 18. We tried to find a shelter. They asked if we were pregnant. No. Addicted to drugs. No. Then they didn't have any way to help. That's not how I thought it worked. And yes, I have tons of empathy for those groups, and everyone deserves shelter, but as an overachieving teenager facing sleeping outside, it seemed wildly unfair. Next story. It is really hard to start from scratch when you don't have any savings, any references, or a permanent address. You need an advocate to get a foot in the door anywhere. You also use up all of the karma you've built up with your friends, couch surfing and or storing stuff in their basement, in order to not lose absolutely everything you own. It's something you can only do once or twice before it starts jeopardizing friendships. Next story. How difficult filling time is, especially as there aren't many places to spend time without spending money. The whole day with nothing to do and nowhere to be. And somehow, I had to find a way to keep myself occupied until it was time to sleep again. It was absolutely maddening, especially considering I found it difficult to concentrate or walk for long periods because I was medically starving to death also. Next story. How people completely blame you for being homeless, and how much time I spent trying not to be seen, to avoid cops and for privacy. How much it sucks not to have a bathroom. How much impact weather makes on your day. How being unclean for so long really feels. I was working and homeless. Living out of my car completely changed my worldview, for the worst. Next story. I was very temporarily couch hopping when I hit 18 years old. The desperation was something else. I remember the night I went to this guy's place. We had mutual friends and had been chatting for at least a year, but never met in person. Got drunk, listening to music, and ended up kissing. But I stopped it there because I had just been through a breakup. Well, he said if we didn't have sex, he was going to kick me out. I had 2 garbage bags and a backpack full of my belongings. I couldn't. That was too heavy to carry and get anywhere. And where would I go? There was nowhere. Welcome to womanhood, I guess. Best part was afterwards he started talking all sweet to me, all cutesy and wholesome. It was so confusing. I didn't actually realize it was SA until years later. Next story. Homeless at 13, on and off until 22. How tired being in a constant state of survival mode is. It's dangerous, and sleeping, you are vulnerable. Even deep in the forest, you can have people walk up on you while you're asleep. There's a lot of people who are okay with homelessness so long as they do not have to see it. There are a lot of people who get joy out of messing with vulnerable people. Next story. When you have to steal food not to die, and privileged people think that you are a horrible person. I was homeless in my early 20s. It was really awful. Thankfully, I never ended up on the street, but I was very close to it. I was trying to finish up my degree. The pandemic hit my school and it closed, and I had nowhere to live. So I bounced around several dangerous situations while working and going to school, and it was awful. It's really awful. If you have the backup option of moving in with family, please understand how grateful you ought to be. May the hell of being unhoused never find you. Now, like 5 years later, I busted my ass and suffered and struggled, but now my finances are mostly fixed. I have a job with a salary and benefits. I've been clawing my way up, and now I work in an office full of very privileged people. I don't fit in at all, but I don't want to either. These aren't my type of people. Someone brought up this homeless person who was caught stealing, and a couple of people were so quick to say what a POS he was, probably on drugs, belongs in jail, what a loser, etc., etc. I stayed silent because not too long ago, that was me. Now I'm sitting here with these people who went on skiing trips as kids, own multiple properties, etc., etc., while I have hella roommates and take public transit because it's a high cost of living area. I busted my ass and suffered, and now I'm here. It's not good, but I'm closer to where I want to be in life. People don't understand that it takes decades of persistent and consistent effort to not sink even lower and claw your way up through life when there are no hands out or support to be found. How difficult it is to make something of yourself when basic needs are your goal. It takes decades. So just be quiet if this sounds familiar. Just be quiet instead of saying what you feel about poverty and nonviolent crime. Next story. I haven't been homeless. I've been a social worker who works with homeless for 25 years. I'm also male. I will say this. The stories I've heard from women are 10 times worse than men. I don't mean to minimize how bad men have it, but the stories I've heard from women and the things I've witnessed are absolutely horrid. Homeless teen females have it the worst. And God help them if they're attractive. And the danger isn't just from homeless men. A while back, I had to report a police officer who invited/was pressuring a homeless 18-year-old homeless high school student he met that day to come live with him. I'm a male, and I have developed a distrust in other men. Next story. That at 16, the Children's Aid Society gave me a choice. Either stay put in a foster home until I aged out at 18, or be homeless, as they would actively prevent me from being eligible to stay in homelessness shelters and/or student welfare, which still was a thing at the time in Ontario. And I chose homelessness. It was the only time in all of the years I spent in care that I was ever given a choice. I don't regret it. But what I think would shock people the most about being homeless is how boring it really is. You have no money, no future, nowhere to go, no one who gives a crap about you. Every day is the same: food, shelter, avoid all of the predators. Now do it again. Kill as much time as you can at the library before they boot you out. Hang out in the mall, collect bus schedules until the ladies behind the counter whisper that they think you are schizophrenic for coming here every day. Now what? How do you kill time? Where do you go? What do you do to fill up another empty day? Next story. I was homeless for about a year after I got divorced. My family basically booted me out. My ex-husband and I were on good terms, so he took custody of our child while I tried to figure my situation out. I barely had any possessions, but I was robbed constantly. My only home was my car, and I donated plasma a few times a week to keep enough gas in the car to get back and forth to my jobs. I sold pot and was basically Uber before it existed. No prostitution though, but I worked so many odd jobs during that period. I cannot remember all of them. It took me about a year to get myself situated, even with the 2 jobs and a car. Trying to keep the car running well enough to get me to my jobs took the majority of my money on most paychecks. I had several people that kept telling me to sell my car and use that to get a place, but I wouldn't have been able to keep a place without transportation. I live in the South. Buses are all we have, and they don't go everywhere, even in a larger city. I was also lucky that I was homeless at a point in time that gasoline was very cheap, so keeping my crappy car fueled up wasn't too hard on me. And I used to roam the city at night and park and sleep in the daytime. It felt safer. I still wake up now, more than 25 years later, dreaming that I forgot to lock the car doors, and it causes me to wake up instantly. Next story. How easy it is to end up there. Even while working a full-time job, you're almost always one injury, short paycheck, emergency car repair, layoff, etc. away from homelessness. The spiral happens faster than you can keep up with, and it's nearly impossible to pull yourself back up once it starts. It's a domino effect. There's no pulling yourself up by your bootstraps to avoid it. And it doesn't matter what kind of money you make or how many jobs you work, landlords, they will evict. Mortgages will foreclose, lenders will repo, credit card companies will sue. What little money you did have to get yourself caught up will vanish faster than you can make it back up. You can take out a loan to catch back up, but it's just more debt to add to the pile and only prolongs the inevitable. If you're already there, it seems like a really grim way of looking at things, but it's not just my experience that forms this opinion. Next story. Shelters have really strict arrival and departure times. My local shelter beds were first come, first serve, 7 p.m. to 7:30 p.m., and you had to be out at a specific time. No sleeping in. If I took the morning shift, I'd have to kill 4 hours before the shelter opened. My local library was only open 4 days a week. A lot of coffee shops closed at 5 p.m. I had no car, and the mall was nowhere near the shelter. It was rough in winter. Then, if I took the midday shift, I'd get off work too late to get a bed. I would just put my hands up in my pockets and pretend I was out for a walk. I would walk until the sun came up. I never missed a day of work, never drank, smoked, used drugs, and I never told anyone what was happening. It was cold, lonely, and exhausting. Next story. I was 18 and moved to another country for a woman in her 40s after being kicked out of my adoptive home for possessing tarot cards. I broke it off after 8 years and she stalked me for about 6. Homelessness is desperation to me. Seeking family I never had and trying my hardest to obtain something that will never be. I made a lot of bad decisions that led to something good though. I think it's given me a better appreciation for other people struggling. I have 2 children now. It didn't work out with their mom, but they are the most cherished thing in my world. I wake up to their smiling faces every day, and they are all the family I will ever want or need in this life. I would sacrifice everything for them. I am truly happy, and I have a wonderful woman in my life that I hope to someday call my wife. Next story. 2 things. How much it actually costs to be homeless/living in your car, especially as a full-time student who had to find a way to get to campus every day for class and then find a place to sleep every night. And where I am, the only safe place I could find was a rest stop about 20 minutes away. Then how 90% of homeless individuals are there for each other. If someone needed cigarettes and I had some, I'd share. If I had no food and there was a person cooking, they'd invite me to have some of what little they had. It was one of the most supportive communities I have ever experienced. So everyone, I haven't said much so far just because there really hasn't been much for me to say. But I did appreciate the perspective provided in this video that there's still a community, like all of these people are suffering and going through relatively the same thing. For the most part, the same thing, just for, they're there for different reasons. So to hear the fact that, at least from OP's experience, that 90% of individuals are just willing to share and be there for each other is incredibly heartwarming to hear, even if they're in such an incredibly challenging, what's the word I'm looking for? Predicament. There we go. Let's just use predicament. But anyway, let's continue. Next story. So, people think that the government or someone will help them when you're out of luck, but it can actually literally happen to anyone. No one has to take care of you, and drugs aren't always why you're there. Being a teen on the streets means you likely have no driver's license or photo ID, no rental history to get a place, no address to get a job. As a teen, it is impossible. In the city, it was difficult also managing how many predators there actually is. There's men talking to young girls, offering extravagant job offers with a home a town over, or taxis at night offering women a place to stay, or the number of sex offenders that can't get a job who just carry on preying on girls in the streets. Those were common traps. Next story. The people I knew who were homeless said SA, and SA is extremely common. A lot of homeless men choose to be homeless just because they can do it to homeless women regularly without consequences. Regular people who don't live on the street do it too and basically drive in circles looking for homeless women to assault. That's why women on the streets try hard to be invisible. One friend said she would hang out around grocery stores because she thought it was safer, but guys would eventually figure out she was homeless and would come back late at night and circle the area trying to see where she was sleeping so that they could SA her. She had to hide a lot at nighttime because multiple people who had seen her at the grocery store would come looking for her after it was closed. Next story. I lived on Venice Beach during the height of the pandemic. It seemed fun for a second until it wasn't, and it got really dark incredibly fast. Bad meth was coming out of the corner of Rose and 3rd. We said that's where the devil lived. People would take this meth and attack each other for no reason. I was a victim of this and beaten with brass knuckles. A girl I knew had her tent lit on fire with her in it. I saw another person get run down with a car on the boardwalk, multiple stabbings, shooting, kidnapping SA, but perhaps the worst was a girl I knew who got attacked by a street method called gurring, where you drug someone against their will repeatedly with experimental psychedelics until they permanently lose their mind. She was an innocent girl, and within a week she was digging in dumpsters speaking gibberish, with a crazed look on her face, drooling all over herself, completely separated from reality. An actual living hell. I had to carry a machete on my belt constantly for protection. Cops didn't want to go near the boardwalk at night. It was just that dangerous. The shoreline Crips would patrol and collect taxes at night, or else. I eventually, though, raised enough money busking for a skateboard for transportation. And big mistake. When people saw me cruising with a new Dogtown board, they gaslit me, saying I stole it from the Crips. Word of that spread, and I had to flee Venice at night with people actively trying to kill me. I've never been so terrified. I ended up all the way in Hunting Beach the next morning asking for help, not realizing I still had my machete on me, and looked insane after having lived in the elements for over 6 months. This then resulted in a police helicopter circling me with cops on releasing the canines. I was charged with aggravated assault with a deadly weapon on a law enforcement officer and placed in solitary confinement for over 60 days because of COVID. But 4 years later, after so much hard work, I've finally had the charges dropped. Have 2 jobs and a dog, living in an incredible apartment in mid-city LA with access to everything and opportunities to play DJ gigs and meet some of my most influential musicians. I've been in all kinds of therapy to process this, but I am forever changed. The night terrors, panic attacks, distrust in people, and flashbacks, it's all so much. I thank God every day that I'm alive and survived that horrific experience. Homelessness with that degree of violence changes you in such a way that it is hard to relate to others, and hard to talk about it as it's just too much for the average person to comprehend. You don't know just how bad it can get until you get experience, and I wouldn't wish that experience upon my worst enemy. I am forever traumatized, but it does get better as long as you persevere and have true grit, one day at a time. God bless anyone who has experienced this. Next story. Never trust someone who says they'll be there for you. Everyone has their limits. Grew up being told by my mom that I always had a place to stay. Got kicked out at 23 after coming back from the military. Was in college, not a drug addict, always been a quiet person and cleaned up after myself. I'm not perfect. I left the occasional item laying around for a day or two max. I didn't think the person who birthed me would use that against me. She didn't like that I told her I think my little brother and sister should share some of my chores. So I ended up in a shelter. Next story. I am a mom of 2 teenage boys. I've read through the comments. I've never been homeless, but I've taken in 3 other boys and a girl throughout the years. I've also taken in 3 adults in need of housing. They all come from various backgrounds, but all needed a safe, loving, clean space to live. They stay at my place until they're ready to leave. I wish I could have taken in all of you so you didn't have to experience what you all experienced. My heart breaks for you guys, and I just wish I could somehow take it away for you. All of my strays, and I call them that in the absolutely most loving way, are doing well in their lives. We're all still close, and I wish you all had someone like that in your lives. I truly do. I'm in the mindset of if you need anything and I have it, it's yours. And I wish more people thought that way. We all need to help each other out, and people just don't. I hope that you all are in okay places in your life now. I wish I could give all of your younger selves a big mom hug. And I'm so proud that you all survived your experiences. So proud. Next story. The fact that a young person will rob an old person of food. The fact that old women and men will take advantage of the young sexually. How nice people really are. Waking up and learning the OG passed away of the cold. People burning people in their tents over a $200 debt for drugs. The cool people you meet. Those you wish you didn't meet. I can go on and on. Next story. Not having storage space is a thing that ends up making life expensive or risky. You start to stink super fast, especially if you're younger or spend your time outside. And passing as normal so that staff and security don't clock you becomes incredibly important, especially when you need to use the restroom or stow in a place away from eyes to sleep. Me, I was lucky enough to just be a campus bum at college. Once I got a job, I managed to reach out to someone subletting at the very end of my public transit line. Next story. Everything that you have established in your life starts to deteriorate. Friends don't want to worry about your problems or have you around. Family relationships are ruined because of resentment. Savings get drained faster than you would expect as a teenager. The body enters starvation mode after eating the bare minimum for about a month or two, causing pretty intense pain throughout the day. Depression and apathy fill your mind. Drugs and alcohol are the only relief. You start to realize that nobody in the world really cares about you. Nobody is willing to help you out if you are basically in a death spiral. People only help others if they can benefit themselves or if it is only a minor inconvenience to them. Any average person will become like the person that you see on the street and live in complete misery given an unlucky chain of events. Life circumstances can also change dramatically for the better, given a lucky chain of events, even after being homeless as a teenager, but resentment towards family still remains. Next story. How you are just one desperate bad decision away from total self-destruction. I was homeless for 3 months my senior year of high school. I slept in a grocery store parking lot, survived off of 7-Eleven chili, the attendees let me have it for free, and used school showers. I was working and going to school. There were 4 strip clubs in a 1-mile radius where I slept in my car in the middle. I'm confident I could have danced underage, but I didn't. I also knew that the extended stay hotels were expensive compared to rent. So instead of sleeping in a nice bed temporarily, I spent 3 months savings for first and last month's rent so I could rent an apartment for low-income families to have a permanent bed to sleep. I was able to get my apartment 3 days after I turned 18. There were easy ways out the whole time, but none were sustainable and each a distraction from my goals. Next story. I was homeless on purpose for like a month after my lease ended and before scholarship started in another state, so I was just a tourist. Now, lack of engagement from others / feelings like a pariah, few places you could just exist. The library was a refuge. It was constantly dangerous. Constantly packing, unpacking your belongings was exhausting. Hygiene was hard. Constantly being on the edge and what the level of stress does to the body and mind, the kindness of strangers, and also the cruelty of strangers. Next story. I was softcore homeless. Wasn't disowned or destitute, but lived out of my car because of adverse circumstances that I assumed I would rebound out of quickly while I figured my life out. And there is an intoxicating freedom to homelessness. I almost circled the drain, became an alcoholic, and totaled my car. I had a good family to fall back on, but if I didn't have that, I would 100% become a burnout. The crazy thing is, I still think about going back to that life. The freedom was totally unparalleled, and now I feel stunted by not wanting to mentally commit to any lifestyle for more than a season at a time. That's the thing that a lot of people don't get. Homelessness is awesome until it isn't, and you have nowhere to go. That's why it's so hard to get people off the streets, I believe. Once you've lived every day for yourself and yourself alone, it becomes really hard to just step back into the systems of society. So, I believe this is the first homelessness is awesome comment that we've gotten so far. I suppose there is a certain amount of freedom to it, and it's liberating that you don't have to pay for bills, which I suppose in a certain light is nice. But no one else has really painted it in a positive light, even to a remote degree so far, so take that as you will. Anyway, next story. So I was homeless for about 2 years, from 19 to 21. There were a handful of nights I had to sleep outside, but most of those 2 years were spent sleeping at hotels and hopping around. The instability, it's hard. Most motels had a rule you had to leave for at least 3 days after 28 consecutive days. Having to repack, not lose important documents, and get to a new hotel without a car, and also worrying if I'd still be able to make it to work now that I was further away, was incredibly stressful each month. I was thankful I worked overnights at Waffle House, so if I couldn't afford a room, I could work then stay there for the day. And my managers / coworkers were very understanding, many in the same position, and would allow me to take home as much food as I needed or come in to eat free even when I wasn't working. Then, people also underestimate the compassion of other homeless people. There was one time my ex and I were staying in a motel, and our neighbors were 2 older men who lived in a tent, but were able to save to get a room for a week each month. The first time we met, my ex got a cigarette off of them, and in return, we offered them some pizza. They leave, and a month goes by, and I was just starting my new job, and we had no money and no room, and it was about to storm. A few hours later, they checked in on us and came to say hello. Once they learned we were outside, they let us stay with them for the night until I made some cash the next day. Then another homeless older couple we knew would come into Waffle House when I was working because I'd let them stay inside for my entire shift. Never charged them for food, but they would always tip me $10 even though they didn't have much either. Then addiction is a tough battle even when you're stably housed, but not having a place to live makes it worse. Thankfully, I was clean before becoming homeless and also didn't have money for drugs. A roof over my head was always my priority, but I met several people who didn't become addicts until they were homeless. Sleeping outside is ungodly uncomfortable. Oh, here's a pill that'll relax you and help you sleep. It starts off when you just use it to get some sleep, or the opposite to stay up so you don't have to sleep outside. Then again, you finally feel rested. The next thing you know, you're withdrawing. Continuing, a lot of people seem to have misconceptions about how much help you'll receive from social services. It's non-existent here. Section 8 list is years long. People with kids are the priority for shelters, and they were always full. I had a cryptic pregnancy during this time. I didn't know until I was almost 7 months along, so I couldn't even get an abortion. So many people told me, "Oh, now that you're having a baby, you'll get into a shelter and they'll help you get an apartment." Nope. I was able to move in with family when my kid was a couple of months old and have been there since. But before that, I applied for housing programs and never got help. But they won't hesitate to call CPS on you if you sleep in your car for even one night with a baby. It's a tough life. Be kind to the people you meet. You don't know how they ended up in their situation, and most people are one emergency away from ending up like them. Next story. There's not enough homeless shelter beds. There can be issues of serious violence, assaults, SAs in homeless shelters. Many homeless shelters kick you out early in the morning or during the day, even if you're sick, even if you're recovering from a surgery, even if it's freezing and you have nowhere to go and local stores and other places aren't open yet because it's before business hours. Being homeless is traumatic. I think anyone eventually would be impacted emotionally by such stress, but contrary to popular narrative of people simply refusing psychiatric medications, etc., if you are being forced outside during the snow or heat of summer, etc., that can destroy your pills. Most pills have to be kept at room temperature. Also, if you're a woman, you have to be worried about getting SA'd in your sleep, or you're any gender worried about having to run from cops because it's illegal to sleep outside. Being sedated from psych meds is extraordinarily dangerous. Also, it's incredibly hard to stop things of yours from being stolen or thrown out by others. And while a lot of people don't trust homeless people with spare change, a lot of times it's easier to get free meals than have the money you need for prescription copays and bus fare to the doctor's office, etc. Then, for people who use substances dry, sober, shelters can mean someone who relapses loses a support network and has to go be around even more temptation in a wet shelter, where using doesn't kick you out. But wet shelters can mean people have a hard time ever getting clean because they can never get away from the substances. Homeless shelters in some areas are also not open in the summer. There can be arbitrary rules like you have to go there by 3 p.m. that makes it impossible for you to work at 9 to 5, or go to evening therapy appointments, or 12-step meetings, or see your kids, etc. Or you're not allowed to stay with your partner or spouse, or you're only guaranteed one night of shelter at a time, and every day is a lottery. But when you're inside, you're only allowed a very tiny locker, not a tent, and a lot of things with you. And then the next day, if you don't get a bed, you have not enough outdoor gear to survive sleeping in the snow, etc. I'm surprised I didn't lose toes from frostbite despite having decent boots. Literally, the flesh turned black and I thought I was just dead. Then there's the dehumanization of people ignoring you and treating you like you're inherently dangerous or looking to take advantage of them or are untrustworthy. It's shocking to feel it just from random strangers, from friends, even unfortunately at times from healthcare providers or professionals like that. If you are homeless, it makes you look bad to new landlords too. It's very hard to work while homeless, and resume gaps make it harder to get a job. There are many roads to homelessness too. For young adults, a parent may be incarcerated, not around, deported, or have died or become seriously or life-threateningly ill. Family may have rejected them due to being LGBT. The young adult may be escaping abuse from family or a partner. A mental health emergency may have led to getting kicked out of college dorms. Student visa status may prohibit people from working while here. And unexpected injury or illness requiring hospital admission sometimes, even just for a few days, can lead to missed income or problems at work, and termination that can lead to homelessness. There's fires or hurricanes or tornadoes which can destroy homes. Other family members or roommates can suddenly have things happen to them, no longer contributing financially as expected. Disability interferes with ability to work, but disability benefits are difficult and slow to get, and often inadequate to get housing. There are also shortages of domestic violence shelter beds. So yeah, people don't have the money for first or last month's rent and security deposit, or can't afford the literal moving boxes. And people who should be able to help sometimes, they don't care. My college counseling center, when I made an appointment and asked for help around resources for my impending homelessness, the social worker coldly shrugged and just said, "Google it." Next story. I wasn't exactly homeless, but even just having an unstable housing situation, bouncing from place to place, really effed with my sense of safety and security. What I mean by that is, even though I've been living at my current apartment for over 2 years now with no issues, there are moments where I'll start getting paranoid about losing my housing and get really worked up and anxious. It traumatizes you. Next story. Food stamps are very frustrating sometimes. I could not buy hot food from the grocery store. That is too fancy, I guess. But I didn't have a way to cook food, so it was all cold. Or like, I was allowed to buy cans of food, but not a can opener? So instead of buying the $5 huge chicken deal and eating a lot, I would wind up buying a $14 sushi roll since it was a cold item, and then be getting comments about how irresponsible buying sushi was. But I was sick of cold Lunchables. Next story. Okay, I'm dropping this here for whoever needs this information. You can send your mail to your local post office's physical address as a residence address and pick it up. It's best if you have a P.O. box to avoid losing mail accidentally. Enter the post office's physical address, then add unit with the box number. Anything that requires a residence address will be sent there. I learned this as a camp host. Worked beautifully. Next story. Just how little there is to catch us when we do fall. There are shelters, but not enough to house us quickly and efficiently to make it easier to get employment and keep our employment. Also, lack of help for our furry friends too, who get forgotten in the struggle to keep ourselves homed. Also, just how much we have to go through and so many unnecessary written rules to get a job is ridiculous. I should just need to hand you my name and my social security number to apply. That's it. You want more? Interview me, talk to me, get to know me as a person. Next story. When you experience your first winter outside with nowhere to go. Yeah, obviously you're cold and you do anything to keep warm, but something else happens inside of your chest. It's almost like the coldness never goes away. I was homeless one winter when I was about 25. I'm 36 now. My chest is still ice cold. Next story. How easy it is to slip through the cracks. There were so many opportunities to better my situation at the time, but someone older, younger, or folks with established family units typically got priority. Late teens, mid-20s means aging out of youth programs, and not a lot of ways to pick up that slack. Lots of adult consequences with little option to prevent or prepare the incoming damage of those. Next story. Not sure if it's that shocking, but people will see you as vulnerable and try to take advantage of you as much as possible. No, they're not offering a ride to be nice. They expect something back for it. You have to sleep with all of your things attached to you, or you will wake up and they'll be gone. Sleep with your backpack on, your foot wrapped around your other bags, etc. If you sleep in a park or somewhere that's not concrete, you will get ate up with bugs too. When it's cold, you shiver so much. I think being on drugs saved my life a few times when it dipped below freezing. I was so cold I couldn't even think or move. I just shivered until I drifted off to sleep. There are some times of cold that no amount of clothes or blankets will help. Then, just going into a store like Starbucks to charge your phone becomes dehumanizing. They'll tell you to leave even if you do buy the cheapest drink. They won't let you use the bathroom either. Or if you're in a store, they'll watch you like a hawk. You never feel normal. Somehow, you feel invisible, but so seen and looked down on at the same time. Well, everyone, I feel like for this video especially, we heard the same few things so many different ways. And it's a sad video, I have to admit. I try to put people in a positive mood before sending people on their way with these videos. That's why I always try to joke around and stuff. But I would just remind everyone to be thankful for what you have. Like some people mentioned, like if you have a family to fall back on or somebody to fall back on, like be grateful for that. Like these people mentioned, it's just one bill, one accident, a few small things, and then you could end up like them. Like I doubt most of these people expected to be in these situations. And then while, I do have empathy and sympathy for homeless people, I don't know any homeless people. I've never really had extended conversations with homeless people. So to get these stories from their perspectives just gives me more empathy. And I feel like I want to do more somehow. Maybe I need to keep more water in my car. I don't know. Maybe I don't really keep bills anymore. Maybe I should go to the bank and just keep like some 10s, 5s, 20s on me. I don't know. But I just, there's no words I can say, guys. Just you feel it, be thankful for what you have, and take every day as you can. But anyway, folks, we're at the end of the video. Thank you all so much for watching, commenting. Have a really good day, and bye-bye.